Hello everybody, nice to be back. It's Friday the 13th. Are you suspicious? I'm not. So that's okay. It's another day in paradise. I want to talk to you today about the word ghosting. All right. I don't think I've covered this topic before on a video. Right, camera. And so I'm going to do that today because it's a word that's kind of become a popular get out of jail free card for every single person on the planet. And what I mean by that is if someone is supposed to meet you for a meeting or for a coffee or for whatever it might be, and they don't arrive and they don't answer their cell phone and you try, where they are. So they could be held up, they could be had an accident, they could just not be able to make it. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, you see, for people who don't have any kind of mental illness, that's not ghosting. That's just called really fucking rude, okay? But if you have mental illness, certain degrees, certain kinds, certain degrees, one of them could be have agoraphobia attached to it. So what happens is you make plans to meet up with a friend of yours and well in advance, say a week, and you, at the time you make the plan, you really believe you're going to go, isn't it? Then the day comes and you find you're unable to move. You can't even get out of bed. You don't want to do anything and you are struck with fear. And you don't know why you're struck with fear, but you just are, because this is all part of your trauma. So instead of phoning then because you don't know what to say, you might just not phone at all. And then if they phone you, you might answer the phone and say you're sick or you have a headache or something came up, which is still going to make the other person really peeved. But that's okay, because if somebody understands that you have mental illness and you have mood disorders, whatever they might be, then you're apt to do this kind of thing. We are apt to bow out of situations that we put ourselves in often. And it's just a form of survival. It's not to hurt anybody and it's not rude. But if you're a perfectly fine person and you're just rude and you don't feel like letting that person know that you can't be at the meeting or at the coffee, well, then you're just a rude person. So that term ghosting would then apply to that, to normal people who just are rude, who have no sort of moral compass where it comes to letting people know, listen, I can't make it, I'm not feeling great. In fact, even if you have a mood disorder, mental illness, whatever you have, you can text, because sometimes phoning is very difficult too, because you're afraid, immediately you're afraid of that, a rejection. And they're not going to believe me. And then what? And then what? And you can't be authentic. You feel you can't say what is actually wrong. Like, hey, I can't meet you for tea because I'm having a mammoth panic attack. Not happening, sorry. Because will the other person understand that or not? This is why it's important to talk about mental illness. It's not mental health if you have mental illness. And I'll say that until I'm 6 foot under. I'll keep going, because I cannot call mental health, mental illness, mental health. So you have some kind of mental illness, and that probably developed from trauma, which you haven't worked through yet, right? It's a fascinating thing when you work through your trauma, what starts to let go. The other thing about not just ghosting, but about relationships. Welcome to my kitchen table and all the mess. Okay, I've been painting. When you like someone, and you feel attracted to them, and you got all this chemistry going on between the two of you. Or perhaps he or she doesn't seem to be that much reciprocal to your kindness. That again could be that you're thinking too much in the head, and so are they. So what's happening is perhaps they're thinking from the heart and you're thinking from the mind. So the mind is saying, he or she doesn't like me. Let's take this back to ghosting. So someone you really fancy and who you believe really likes you, right? You're meeting up together and he or she doesn't arrive. And so your mind starts telling you, well, this person doesn't like me. This person is a horrible person. This person's, and fill in the blank. But drop the narrative and try drop into your body, into your heart. Because your heart is never going to lie to you. And your mind it's going to tell you every terrifying story in the book. You're not good enough. They don't really like you. They're just playing along. They're just doing this. They're just doing that. What does your heart tell you? And if you listen to your heart when you are in a relationship with anybody, then you are bound to do the right thing by them and for yourself. You know, relationships are a two-way street. So if this story ghosting comes up, if you are dating someone or you're married to someone, then they must know you have some kind of mental illness, because that's what this channel covers. So not everyone in the world has got mental illness, but billions do, and they don't even know it. And why is that? Well, here we go. I'm on a tangent here. So when we're young and we, experience trauma, right? What is trauma? Trauma is a wound. So it's something that happened to you then, but that's not the trauma. The trauma is the wound that it left behind. Maybe you weren't seen. Maybe you weren't allowed to speak up. Maybe you were beaten. Maybe you were told to be quiet and just leave the room when the adults are in the room, kind of thing. And here it gets tricky if you're a parent, because when you have kids and you get friends around, you don't want your children to be sitting in with all the adults. So then you go and give them something else to do. But you don't, and you explain why they can't be in the room, because it's for adults. It's adults' time. It's how it works. So if you just think about the word back to ghosting, right? You might have set up some kind of get together with friends, although highly unlikely. If you have a mental illness, you probably like to be more in solitude. And sometimes it's easier, I tell you, than trying to explain, well, I've got this and this and this, and then you get a wide-eyed look like, what does that mean? And you have to then explain it. And that becomes exhausting. So you don't explain it. And you just run with whatever your mood does. And that gets you people to decide, because their minds now decide that you're lousy because you are not returning the call, or you're not turning up, or you haven't answered their call, or whatever it might be, when in fact you could be struggling. So instead of them asking you what happened, why weren't you there, why didn't you pick up the phone, why didn't you answer, why couldn't you just text me, they don't. They will do the ghosting. And you know how that works. So it's now the other way around. You have a legitimate reason for not turning up, not answering the phone, not texting anybody. Texting is irritating anyway, but sometimes we have no choice. So not texting people. And so you are basically unreliable. It's not that you're unreliable, it's that you have a wound that hasn't yet healed from when you were young. And I know this video is all over the place, but I'm trying to marry the two, this ghosting that people put onto others. Like the whole world, everyone's ghosting each other. That's absolute garbage. What's happening is people are traumatized, people have their own stuff to do, people are really incapacitated. There are some people who are completely incapacitated and they're just not able to do it on that day. So with all the good intentions in the world, you wake up and you just go, not today. I can't do it. And I can't phone the person because they don't know about your mental illness. So what they're going to do is ghost you. And how? Because you're going to then, when you're feeling okay, try and get hold of them and let them know that you just couldn't make it. And you might make up something. I had a migraine or whatever you might say. It doesn't matter. Something, because you have to come up with some, not an excuse, but some kind of reason that makes sense, because you haven't told them about your mental illness. And so they either, and then very often, as I said, they look at you with big eyes, what's that? And then you got to start explaining. And maybe you just don't have it, because a lot of people don't believe that mental illness exists. We still have people who say, that's not true, that doesn't exist. But they'll use the word ghosting without a problem, without even knowing what that means. Ghosting means just not turning up, not answering, just ignoring. That's basically what it is. So if the person that you are meant to meet or see or whatever doesn't turn up and doesn't phone or text, don't immediately jump to what every magazine article puts out there and people write, this person's such an effing blah, 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 because they ghosted me when I this and I that and I. You see, we're all thinking me, I. Whereas, what about thinking that person? You know, why did that person? So maybe a phone call to say, are you okay? And that might bite you because you think, I'm not doing that. I mean, this she or he, they've always turned up. I mean, I'm not going to say, what, are you okay? Obviously they're okay, or they would have let me know. Aha, would they have? Could they? So you can see how this word is loosely used, not understood very well, and is thrown about in all kinds of situations. So if, in my case, if I have a friend who doesn't answer my calls and who doesn't text me back, or who just completely has cut contact with me, I don't sit for hours and think, what have I done wrong? What could I have done? Because that's what we tend to do. When we have mood disorders, mental illness, whatever it might be, it's all the same thing. We tend to blame ourselves and think, what have I done? And then we feel all guilty. Maybe try not to feel that. Maybe just think that person that is not answering you, that doesn't want to necessarily talk to you or whatever, maybe just send them a kind message and say, I hope you're okay. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Because more than that you can't do. But don't immediately assume, please, my friends, if someone doesn't answer you or doesn't answer, doesn't respond, doesn't give you any reason for their kind of disappearance for a while. Don't just say they ghosted me, because that isn't true. So drop the narrative and fall into your body. What does your heart tell you? If your heart tells you that they're a good person, that I like him or her, I really do, this is not like them. Something is wrong. then rather be kind. It's always easier to be kind than to fight and to try and make yourself right and make yourself the person who's fine, because, hey, you didn't ghost anybody, but you will ghost them, because what will happen is you then won't come back to them, because your mind has decided you are the problem. No, you're not the problem. So unless you're just being a really shitty person, okay, we have many of those in the world, selfish, shitty people. We're overrun with them. And unless you're one of them who really couldn't give a rat's whether that person is happy or not, or turns up or not, or couldn't be bothered with anybody except your own sycophantic little load of life, then that's just what you are. So we get mentally ill people who are genuinely, every single day is a struggle with depression, with agoraphobia, with having nightmares the night before, with depression. Many cannot get out of bed. And I can talk to you about depression where your organs actually get heavier, scientifically proven that your organs are heavier. So that feeling of not being able to get out of bed, that is actually what it is. You're depressed. And so you have to work through that. And you do it in your own way, and let your body talk to you. Let your body tell you, what does it need? Does it need a hug? You know, rubbing yourself like this is always a very good way when you're feeling really distressed. I'll leave you with a breathing technique that I learned from Dr. Gabor Mate. And it's called, he calls it the 4-7-8. So it's like this. You breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. You hold it for 7 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you breathe out like that for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's in 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 8. If you do that 5 times a day, it resets your nervous system. So maybe if you're going to go out and meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, I can't, and you're sweating and you're feeling heavy and your head's now hurting and you don't know where to go, and then you've lost your keys and because your brain's all scrambled, try just sit down. Don't have the TV on or anything, and do the breathing exercise. Because very often that moves off the whatever distress that's unseen. You know, mental illness, can't see it, so we just, what to do? It's in our behavior. So why don't you try that? And I'll come back with a video on, somebody asked me about being sick physically and having mental illness and how to cope with that. Well, I'll give you my take on it, and I hope it'll help you. But for now, I just want you to know that if you're being accused of ghosting people because you literally cannot get there because your brain and your mind have gone into shutdown, you're not ghosting anybody. And I just hope that whoever it is that's decided you're the nasty witch of the West, that you don't answer them, can ask you, are you okay? And when you're feeling better, don't be afraid. Pick up the phone and let them know, I'm sorry I didn't meet you, but I wasn't feeling well. That's the truth. And then maybe talk about what you've got. Something wrong with it. The whole world, there's 9 billion people on the planet. I can tell you, of those 9 million, probably 7 million are mentally ill in one sort or another. Everyone's traumatized out of their minds, so there's wounds everywhere, and no one knows how to deal with it, or very few people know how to deal with it. So don't come down on yourself, and don't be quick to accuse someone of just ghosting you, they just ignored you, oh my God, how bad. Drop that and drop into your heart. What does your heart say? Because that's much more of a true reflection of what you're feeling and what they're doing. I hope this has helped you somewhat. I look forward to your comments down below, and please like, subscribe, and there's a song for you at the end of this video. As I said, I'll give you songs all the time, and then I'm going to have a giveaway, which I will be doing tomorrow. So tune in for that. Maybe I'll go on Instagram for that one. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being with me. Have a good weekend. Ciao. Oh, and happy Valentine's Day to all of you people who are celebrating Valentine. Cheers.